everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Charlene, and today I'm going to be sharing with you all of the books that I bought in the fall and that I got for Christmas. So this video is going to be divided up into two parts, because this first part is going to be books that I bought for myself in the fall. Basically all the books that I bought since my last book haul. And then the second part, which I will film later, is going to be all of the books that I bought in December or that I received for Christmas or for my birthday. So I'm filming this first part a few days before Christmas because I have the time, and with as many books as I have to go over, unfortunately, I decided to go ahead and take advantage of that time and get this filmed. There are quite a few books here. I have several nonfiction that I've bought. I have some historical fiction, a couple contemporaries, a classic, a few fantasy, and a few middle grade. I think we're mostly going to go through them in that order, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first books I'm going to go over are the nonfiction, and I'm going to start with the Christian/religious nonfiction. And I say religious nonfiction because this first book is not Christian nonfiction, but it is about a religion, and that is What Went Wrong by Bernard Lewis. And the subtitle is Western Impact and Middle Eastern Response. So from what I've understood of it, this is about the people of the Islamic religion looking at the things that have happened in history, in their history specifically, and seeing how their religion and their culture was overshadowed, overtaken by Western culture, and wondering what happened, what went wrong. And I don't know a ton about the Islamic religion, so I'm curious to read this for that reason. Like a lot of the books that are going to be in this book haul, this one I got at a library book sale. And one of my libraries has an ongoing book sale. It's year-round. And I kid you not, the sales have always been really good. To start with, it was you could get an entire bag of books, like a grocery size bag of books, for $1. However, at some point last summer, I don't know if it's because they got a whole bunch more books donated or what the reason is, but they actually changed the price to you can get an entire bag of books for $0.25. It's hard to pass that up when it's even books that you're iffy about. So you're going to see several books on here that I never had on my radar, but I was curious enough about them when I saw them that I thought it's worth risking $0.25. So that's why there's so many books in this book haul. But I am curious to read this one and just kind of see a little different viewpoint, and maybe learn a little bit more about the Islamic religion at the same time. All right, the rest of these are all Christian nonfiction, and the first one is Dead Sea Scrolls, The Untold Story by Kenneth Hansen. And this is the story of what happened to the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were buried at one point, and it was centuries later before they were finally discovered. And so it's, why did the people hide them? What was going on at the time? And then how were they discovered, is my understanding of this book. Then the next one, I actually have a book by this author in a similar vein saved in one of my library apps, but I saw this one at the library and decided to pick it up as well, and that is The Power of Jesus' Names by Tony Evans. And so this book goes through the different names of Jesus, like Emmanuel, the Alpha and the Omega, etc., and delves more into what do those names mean, what do we learn about Jesus from those names, and so on. The book that I have saved in one of my library apps is The Power of the Holy Spirit's Names, and he does also have one on the power of God's names. So at some point I would like to read all three of these books. And also Tony Evans is an author that I have heard good things about, so I feel pretty comfortable picking up this book. Then the last two are by authors that I am not familiar with. So if you are familiar with either of them, either good reputation, bad reputation, whichever, let me know so I have a better idea of whether or not these are authors that I want to pick up or not. But the first one is Praying with Paul by D.A. Carson, A Call to Spiritual Reformation. And so this is looking at how Paul talked about praying in his epistles and looking at what we can learn from that, is my understanding. And then the other one is Hearing God by Dallas Willard, Developing a Conversational Relationship with God. From what I understand, a lot of this is looking at, the idea of we talk to God, we want to hear from God, but how do we know if whether what we hear is from our subconscious or if it's actually from God? And just looking at different things, I'll kind of read the back because I think that explained it better than I'm doing. So it says, how do we hear his voice? How can we be sure that what we think we hear is not our own subconscious? What role does the Bible play? What if what God says to us is not clear? The key, he says, is to focus not so much on individual actions and decisions as on building our personal relationship with our Creator. So this sounded like a really good book to me, as someone who's constantly questioning, how do I know for sure that this is from God and not just what I want to hear? So I'm curious to pick up this book. But again, if you know anything about Dallas Willard, if he's a reputable author or not, let me know. All right, then the last 3 nonfiction are just regular nonfiction. 2 of them are more historical. One, I'm not sure if I would classify it as historical or not, but we'll get there. But the first one is The Wager by David Grann. And yes, I got this at the library book sale. It's from Barnes & Noble. It actually had another Barnes & Noble sticker on here. It looks like it's in fairly new condition. Like, there is almost no sign of wear or tear on this book. It's basically brand new. And because I got other books with it at the same time, I basically got this one for about 5 cents. I wasn't arguing because I've been wanting to read this book. And from what I understand, assuming I don't have this wrong, yes. So a ship landed on the coast of Brazil. And the survivors on the ship were telling this story about these horrible things that had happened on the ship. But then 6 months later, another vessel showed up. And these people were supposedly from the same ship originally. And they had a very different story to tell. So I've been very intrigued about this one since I heard Murphy talk about it on her channel. And finding it at my library book sale, I snatched it up in a hurry. The other one that's just straight historical nonfiction is In Search of the Trojan War by Michael Wood. This is another book I don't know a whole lot about, but I read the Odyssey a couple years ago. I read the Aeneid earlier this year. I do have a copy of the Iliad, and I would like to read it in full maybe this year or next year. And so I thought this might be an interesting book to read alongside it. So this is a historical and archaeological search through ancient Troy and the stories that we got from there and things like that. I don't know exactly how it's going to cover all of that, but that's my understanding of it. All right, then the last one, I just call this straight nonfiction. I don't know that it's necessarily historical, but that is The Lost Continent by Bill Bryson. Now, I read The Mother Tongue by him early in 2024, and I absolutely love that book. But it is on the history of the English language and kind of a lot of the idiosyncrasies of the English language. This one is on small town America. Although, I will be honest, the book starts out talking about Des Moines. And I'm like, Des Moines is a city. Now, as far as metropolitan cities go, it is smaller than a lot of the ones we think of, like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and so on. But it is still a city. So I don't know if he's going to branch out from Des Moines and then just talk about actual small towns from there or not. But it does start out talking about Des Moines, which I find interesting. But I believe that's also, he was born in Des Moines. So that's probably why he starts there. But yeah, I hope he's not just covering smaller cities, but I guess we'll see. Now, normally in my book hauls, I had been reading the first sentence of the books. However, because I have so many, I didn't want to do that with all of these books. But at one point, after I had gotten this book, I started thinking, I know I wanted to read this for a while, but am I actually still interested? Do I want to read it? Then I read the first paragraph and decided, oh no, I am 100% keeping this book. So I am going to read that one to you just because I find it quite humorous. It says, I come from Des Moines. Somebody had to. When you come from Des Moines, you either accept the fact without question and settle down with a local girl named Bobby and get a job at the Firestone factory and live there forever and ever. Or you spend your adolescence moaning at length about what a dump it is and how you can't wait to get out. And then you settle down with a local girl named Bobby and get a job at the Firestone factory and live there forever and ever. So I just thought that was very funny because that happens a lot of times in a lot of places, especially in small towns. My husband has talked about that a lot, how so many kids he knew in his class talked about how they couldn't wait to get out of that town and go somewhere else. And he's like, and a lot of them are still living there. So I found that first paragraph very funny, so I'm 100% keeping this book. All right, so that is all of the nonfiction. So let's go ahead and move on to the one classic that I have, and then we'll go into historical fiction. So the one classic that I got is Babbitt by Sinclair Lewis. Now, I read Main Street by him a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. There are aspects of the story that I like. The problem I had with it was that it started feeling very repetitive. And I have a feeling that repetitiveness was intentional, but I did like his writing. I liked the earlier parts of the story before the repetition started kind of getting on my nerves. So I do want to try another book by him and see if I like it any better. And again, like a lot of these books, found this at my library book sale and decided, you know what, I'll go ahead and pick it up and I'll give it a try. Do I remember what this book is about? Absolutely not. In the fall of 1920, Sinclair Lewis began a novel set in a fast-growing city with the heart and mind of a small town. For the center of his cutting satire of American business, he created the bustling, shallow, and myopic George F. Babbitt, the epitome of middle-class mediocrity. Babbitt basked in his pedestrian success and the popularity it has brought him, but Babbitt's secure complacency is shattered when his best friend is sent to prison, and he struggles to find meaning in his hollow life. He revolts, but finds that his former routine is not so easily overthrown. So it sounds like it could be really good, and it is definitely shorter than Main Street was, so probably less time for any kind of repetition, but it also sounds like it's in a very different vein. So I am looking forward to at least giving this one a try. All right, these next 4 were not from my library book sale, which is why I'm talking about them all together. I ordered these from Christian Book, and actually it makes me realize that I forgot a book in my nonfiction section. Strange Religion. I don't remember who the author is, but when I ordered these books from Christian Book, I got 3 of the books that I ordered, and this book, oddly enough. And then when I sent them an email saying, hey, I got the wrong book, I need the book that I ordered, they said, okay, we'll send you a replacement. Don't worry about sending the other book back. So I do still have that one on my shelves, but I don't know for sure if I'm going to pick it up. It sounds like it could be interesting, but this is another one where I know nothing about the author, so I don't know if I will or not. But I do technically have that one as well. I didn't list it as a book that I received because I didn't personally buy it, and it wasn't technically gifted to me. It was an accident, but I do technically have that one. However, these other 4 are the ones that I did order, and so let's just go over them. So the first 2 are in the same series, and that is A Light on the Hill and Like Flames in the Night by Konolenko Set. These are books 1 and 4. I had book 1, but I gifted it to someone else, so I needed to purchase a new copy. So I did. I have already read this one. I really enjoyed it. And then Like Flames in the Night is the last book and the only one I didn't own. So I went ahead and bought this one as well. And now that I think about it, I forgot. The reason why I bought these 4 books is because somehow in my purchasing, I ended up with a $30 coupon. And the only requirement was you had to spend at least $30.01. So I basically paid like $2 or $3 for all 4 of these books. So that's why I got them. Then the next one is The Weaver's Daughter by Sarah E. Ladd. And I read The Whispers on the Moors trilogy by her. I finished it in 2024. And I really enjoyed the series for the most part. I loved the first book. There was only one aspect that made me not enjoy the second book as much. And then I really liked the third book. So I decided to try out one of her standalones. And so this is the one that I picked up, which looks very wintry. This is one that I realized after I made my winter TBR, I absolutely could have put this on there, but for some reason I didn't. So I'll just read the back because I can't remember what this book is about. Loyalty has been at the heart of the Dearborn family for as long as Kate can remember, but a war is brewing in their small village, one that has the power to rip families asunder, including her own. Henry Stockton, heir to the Stockton fortune, returns home from 3 years at war, seeking refuge from his haunting memories. Determined to bury the past, he embraces his grandfather's plans to modernize the family's wool mill, ignoring the grumblings from local weavers. When tragedy strikes shortly after his arrival, Henry must sort truth from suspicion if he is to protect his family's livelihood and legacy. He's been warned about the Dearborn family. Kate, too, has been advised to stay away from the Stocktons, but chance meetings continue to bring her to Henry's side, blurring the jagged lines between loyalty, justice, and truth. So it is more of a romance, and I'm not always the biggest romance reader, but it sounds like there's more going on in this book than just a romance, so that's why I decided to go ahead and give this one a try. And then the last one, this is one I kept hoping to get to in the summer or the fall, and just never managed to make it work. But that is Beneath His Silence by Hannah Linder. And this one has a little bit more of a gothic feel to it from what I understand. Again, I'll just read the back because I don't remember. Second daughter of a baron and a little on the mischievous side, Ella Pemberton is no governess. But the pretense is a necessity if she ever wishes to get inside of Wykhorn Manor and attain the truth. Exposing the man who killed her sister is all that matters. Why would the strange, handsome lord murder his own wife? It sounds really interesting, and I haven't read a whole lot of Gothic-type books, especially in the Christian genre, so I'm really curious to give this one a try. All right, then I have 3 more historical fiction, and all of these did come from my library book sale. And the first one is The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. And this one I actually bought before I even started A Gentleman in Moscow, but having now read A Gentleman in Moscow, I really want to get to this one. I don't know much about this except that it begins in June of 1954 and takes place in Nebraska. Beyond that, I don't know, but I really liked A Gentleman in Moscow, so I do want to read more of his books. Then the next one is one I've never seen anyone talk about, but I kept seeing it on the shelf, so I decided to pick it up and potentially give it a try. And that is The Silver Chalice by Thomas B. Costain. And this is a story that has something to do with the Grail of Christ, or the cup used by Christ at the Last Supper, so the Holy Grail, if you will. But I think... Okay, this takes place sometime during the reign of Emperor Nero in Rome. So I'm pretty sure that's somewhere in the 1st century. Beyond that, I don't know a specific time, but pretty sure it's the 1st century AD. Kind of curious to pick this one up and see what I think of it. And no, it's not in the best condition, but again, library book sale, you get books for a quarter, you don't argue. Then the next book that I picked up, this is the last historical fiction and also a bit more of a wintry/Christmas read, and that is Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patty Callahan. And this is another one that I was kind of hoping to be able to get to in December, even though it didn't end up on my December TBR. But I wasn't able to work it in. However, I have started hearing so many good things about this book, I do want to make this a priority next December. Then the other Christmassy book that I picked up, this is getting into contemporary books, was Christmas Joy by Nancy Nagel. This was on my December TBR, but unfortunately, with how busy everything was in December, I just didn't have time to read that many books and was not able to get to this one. So it will be going on my December TBR for this year, spoiler alert, and hopefully I'll get to it this year. And then I only have one other contemporary book that I bought. Again, all these are library book sale. Pretty much if they're not from my library book sale, I will tell you. But that is Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. Now, for the most part with Kristen Hanna's books, I have decided that anything prior to, I think, Firefly Lane, I'm pretty much not going to pick up. Because I think other than Comfort and Joy, any book that was written prior to Firefly Lane, I have finished going, it was okay. And don't really feel like I got a whole lot out of it. I feel like starting at Firefly Lane, she really started adding a whole lot more depth to her stories. Her books got longer because there's more to them. And those books I tend to enjoy more. This is the only one in that range from Firefly Lane to The Women that I have not read. So when I found this at the library book sale, I went ahead and picked it up. Now the prologue starts in 1972, but it looks like the rest of the book takes place in 2000, which is not long before this book was written. So it is not historical fiction. This was written in 2010. So not long enough before this book was written to really call it historical fiction. But from what I understand, it has to do with Russia, I think. A captivating, mysterious love story that spans more than 60 years and moves from frozen, war-torn Leningrad to modern-day Alaska. So, that's all I really know about it. Again, this one could have ended up on my winter TBR, but I kind of forgot about it when I made that TBR, so it didn't. If I don't get to it this winter, it will probably be on next winter's TBR. Alright, then from there we're going to move on to the fantasy books. And I only have 3 of these. The first one I bought for myself, and that is Rhapsody by Elizabeth Hayden. And I'm pretty sure this is the first book in a series, but I don't remember the name of the series now. Rhapsody is a woman, a singer of some talent, who is swept up into events of world-shattering import. On the run from an old romantic interest who won't take no for an answer, Rhapsody literally bumps into a couple of shady characters, half-breeds who come to her rescue in the nick of time. Only the rescue turns into an abduction, and Rhapsody soon finds herself dragged along on an epic voyage, one that spans centuries and ranges across a wonder-filled fantasy world. A world so real you can hear the sweet music of Rhapsody's Aubade and smell the smoldering forges deep within the cauldron. Looks like it was written in 1999. So it is a little bit older, but it does sound interesting, so I'm at least willing to give it a try. Then these next two were actually given to me by my brother. He found them at Half Price Books and picked them up for me. But the first one is The Pendragon by Catherine Christine. And all I know is this has to do with Arthurian legend. Bedivere, his boyhood friend and life's companion, tells the true story of the Pendragon himself. The wonders of his rise, the secrets of his lineage, the triumphs of battle, and the tragedy of betrayal and defeat. It's Arthurian legend. I'm going to pick it up and at least give it a try. The other one is also Arthurian legend, but I have read other books by this author, and that is The Book of Merlin by T.H. White. I have read the rest of the Once and Future Kings series. This is the only one that wasn't in that bind-up, and so I now have it, and it's a really short book. This is 137 pages, so it is a very short book. And I forgot I had a couple mysteries that I bought as well, and they're in the same series. But they are The Thursday Murder Club and The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman. And if I understand correctly, these are the first two books in the Thursday Murder Club series. I've kind of heard some mixed things about these books, so I was wanting to read them for a while. Then I was starting to wonder, do I want to read them or not? But again, when they're at my library book sale for so cheap, it's kind of hard to pass them up. And all I really know about these books is that they involve some people living in, I think, a retirement village, who like to try to figure out unsolved cases, and then a murder happens. I don't know if it's in the retirement village or if it's just in the neighborhood, and they start trying to figure it out. That's kind of all I really know. All right, the last three are all middle grade, and the first two are part of the same series, and that is The Prophet of Yonwood and The Diamond of Darkhold by Jean Duprow. These are the third and fourth books in the Book of Ember series, The City of Ember being the first book, and I finally found these at my library. I had been collecting the paperbacks, but again, when they're at the library book sale and you get them really cheap, you don't argue with the fact that they don't match. And if I find the paperback version of The Diamond of Darkhold, then I will probably purchase that so they do all match, but for now, I'm content with them not matching. And this is a middle grade sci-fi series in which people live underground because it was not safe to live on the surface. Then the lights start going out and different things start happening, and a couple of kids come across this box that seems to point to a way out of Ember. Because outside of Ember, it's nothing but darkness, so nobody travels outside of it. Alright, then the last one I did purchase myself, and I did not get it free or cheap, but that is The Mythmakers by John Hendricks. This is a new release, and I am really excited to get to this one. I was hoping to get to it in December. This is a middle grade, kind of, sort of graphic novel book. I read The Faithful Spy by him and really enjoyed it. But it's a combination of pictures with different narrative on it, and even some that look a little bit more like a graphic novel. But this book is about the lives of J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and specifically about their friendship. And John Hendricks is a Christian writer, so their religion, their faith, that comes into play in this as well. And when I heard this book was coming out, I knew I needed to read it. So this was one of the few books that I pre-ordered in 2024. Alright, so those are all of the books that I bought in the fall of 2024. I will now switch over to Future Me, who will be talking about the books that I bought in December and the books that I got for Christmas and my birthday. Hello everyone. So it's now been a few days since Christmas, and I do have the rest of the book haul here for you. But before I get into the books, I do want to mention a few bookish goodies that I got for Christmas as well. And the first one is this mug, which is a Sherlock Holmes mug. And I originally saw this on Chantel's channel. She actually has this exact same mug. Saw it a few years ago. I really like Sherlock Holmes, so it was one that I really wanted. However, on the bottom of this mug, and I assume the mugs that are of similar design, it says, "For best results, please use other side." And I just found that very funny. So between what is said on the bottom and the fact that it's a Sherlock Holmes mug, I added it to my wish list, and it was so kindly gifted to me by Jess from Pages and Grace. So thank you, Jess. I love the mug. It holds a lot of coffee too. This is a slightly bigger mug, so I'm really enjoying this. But there's also another mug that I was gifted, and I have to show you this one as well. This one is a gift from my brother and sister-in-law, and it is this Hedwig mug from Harry Potter. It is another big mug, but you have Hedwig on top, you have a couple books, and you have the Hogwarts letter. And I just love this mug as well. So thank you to them also. So now I have a couple more mugs that I can have in my videos. All right, then just a couple other things that I got before I get into the books. The first one is this packet of sticky notes that are Edgar Allan Poe themed. So if you open them up, there's 4 different types, and they say, "It is the beating of his hideous heart, nevermore, believe nothing you hear and only one half that you see, and all that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream." And I really like these. I don't always use a ton of sticky notes, but now that I have Edgar Allan Poe ones, I will probably use these a bit more often. And then I'm not going to try to hold these up. I'm just going to put images of them up here because my camera takes forever to focus. But I did get 3 bookish stickers from Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia. And the first one says, "I like to party." And by party, I mean read books, which is accurate. The second one has 2 cats with some books and probably a cup of tea or coffee, which is also very fitting because I am a cat person. And then the last one has a cup of coffee on top of a stack of books that say "one more chapter," which is a very common phrase in this house, and my husband has learned not to believe me when I say it. All right, so moving on to the books, I'm going to first talk about books that were sent to me by other booktubers, and then the ones I got from my family, and then the ones that I bought for myself, even though in my 2024 goals recap video, I said I wasn't buying any books in December, but I may have bought some books. So the first book that was sent to me was sent by Anne from In Search of Wonder, and that is A Lady's Guide to Marvels and Misadventure by Angela Bell. Now, this sounds like a really interesting book. From what I understand, it's the Nutcracker meets Around the World in 80 Days mixed with steampunk. And it's also by a Christian author. So I've heard really good things about it. I'm very intrigued to get to this one. And I forgot to look it up, but either March or April, I think it is. Anne and I are planning to buddy read this one together. So I will be getting to this one soon, and I am very excited to get to it. So thank you, Anne, for sending me this book. Then the next book that I was sent to me by Dia from Novel Idea, and that is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington, which is the first book in the Licanius trilogy. I'm not sure how that's supposed to be pronounced. This is a fantasy book that I have been really interested in, but a little more recently, another booktuber named Ian, I don't remember his last name, I'm sorry, he and his wife Ashlyn both have booktube channels. If you haven't seen them, go check them out. I will leave them linked down in the description below. But they do videos where they pick each other's TBRs or they read books off of the other person's TBR. And so at one point he gave her this book to read. I don't remember exactly what the vlog was. But he mentioned to her that there's either little or no language in this book and I believe no sexual content. So it sounds like it's a really clean fantasy. It is a big chunky book. And so to find a chunkier fantasy that is also clean is not very common. So that upped my interest in the book. And when Dia sent this to me, she said that she really enjoyed the book as well. So I am hoping to get to it soon because it sounds really good. So thank you so much, Dia, for sending this to me. And then the last book that I received was actually specifically sent for my birthday. I did mention in a couple of videos that my birthday is at the end of December. And I know with the craziness of Christmas, there's so many people to buy for. I do not expect anyone to buy me gifts for both Christmas and my birthday. And of course, when it comes to subscribers and other booktubers, I don't expect anyone to buy me anything. But Jess from Pages and Grace did get me the mug for Christmas. And then she sent me Recursion by Blake Crouch for my birthday. So thank you so much, Jess. I appreciate this so much. I read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch a couple years ago, really enjoyed it, and just never got around to picking up one of his other books. And I've heard really good things about this one. I think I've even heard someone talking about it more recently, and it's really piqued my interest again. So I'm very much looking forward to getting to this one. Though I will say it feels a whole lot shorter than Dark Matter. So if this one is as much of a page turner as that one is, it's not going to take me very long to get through this. All right, then there are a couple of books that I received. Hold on, I forgot a book. So there was one book I received from a family member that was technically not for Christmas, but it was gifted to me. I did not purchase it. And that is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. And this book was gifted to me by my brother and sister-in-law. We have a book club where we take turns picking books every month, and this book was my brother's choice for November. And he and his wife own a copy of the book, but I did not. So I borrowed it from my library, and I was talking to him about it at one point and talking about how much I was enjoying the book. So he decided to so kindly send me a copy of my own. So I very much appreciate getting this copy. There is a funny story behind it, but this video is already long enough, so I will go into that at some other point. All right, then there are a couple of other books that I received from family members for Christmas, and this first one is also from my brother and sister-in-law, and that is The Sunlit Man by Brandon Sanderson. And yes, it's still in the plastic, so hopefully I can keep the glare off. No, I did not get this when it came out. Back when the Kickstarter was going on, I saw it and I was like, I like the idea. If nothing else, I would at least like to have the 4 books. But I couldn't justify spending that much money on all of the books at one time. So I figured I would just buy them later after they came out, and probably in cheaper editions, and it would be fine. Well, my brother decided to back the Kickstarter and get all of the leather-bound books for me. And these then became my Christmas and birthday gifts over the last basically couple of years. So I finally have the last one. And again, greatly appreciate that he decided to get these for me. But I am glad that I finally have them all. And I'm pretty sure this is the shortest of the 4. At least it feels like it. The only one that might be shorter might be Frugal Lizard. But I can't tell without taking the plastic off. And I don't want to take the plastic off of these until I actually read them. And then the last book that I received is from my parents. And that one is 7 Seals by Mark Goodwin. This is the first book in the Days of Lot series. And all I really remember about this one is that it is a Christian fiction book about the end times. Beyond that, I don't remember, but I know when I looked it up, it sounded really good. I added it to my wish list, and they so kindly got it for me. All right, then the last books I'm going to talk about are ones that I got for myself. And there is a reason that I got all of these. This was not just me buying books willy-nilly. The first books are part of a set. And that is 6 of Jane Austen's novels. So, if you saw my videos in December, you probably saw my announcement that Anne from In Search of Wonder and I are going to be hosting a Jane Austen read-along in 2025. And the main thing we're going to be working on are her novels. The only one I don't have here is Lady Susan, but I do have the other 6. And I did not own any of her books, and I wanted to read physical copies of them, so I decided to buy my own copies. And it was not easy. But I did manage to find them all in a set that was reasonably priced where I could get all 6 of them. It's amazing how hard that actually is to do. So, in case you're not familiar with her books, I have Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Emma, Northanger Abbey, and Persuasion. And I do love the covers on these. They're all very floral. The only thing that bothers me, because except for Emma, I bought all of these at Barnes & Noble. I was originally going to buy them on Amazon. Then I went shopping at Barnes & Noble, found them there, and decided to go ahead and buy them. However, all of them have these nice paperback French flaps. Except for Pride and Prejudice. It's just, if I can get a hold of it, a standard book cover. And I don't know why. There were 3 copies in the store. None of them had French flaps. So, is the only book in the series that is not quite the same as the rest, and I'm not sure why. But they at least all match, and they will all look very nice on my shelves. Alright, then the last books that I bought for myself in December are not actually here yet, but I did purchase them in December. So the first one is Healer by Linda Windsor. And this one is my book club's pick for January. I started a book club in January, and this is our first book club pick, and I did want to own a physical copy of it. So it is on its way. It's just not here yet, but I will have a physical copy to read for that. And the main thing I know about this one is that it takes place in 6th century Scotland during the reign of King Arthur. The other book that I bought for myself is The Lost Memoirs of Jane Austen, and this is one of our picks for the Jane Austen read-along in January. The other one is Pamela by Samuel Richardson, but this is the one that I'm going to be focusing on. So again, I wanted to make sure I had a physical copy. I also read The Secret Diaries of Charlotte Bronte by her last year. Absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite books of the year. And so I did want to own a copy of this one anyway, so I did go ahead and purchase it. And then the last one is The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis. And this one has to do with a pharaoh from ancient Egypt and her curse. There's a woman who is working in Egypt with, I think, some archaeologists in, I want to say, like the 1950s, 1960s. I don't remember exactly. But something happens, we don't know what. And then we jump forward to the present, and there is a woman organizing a Met Gala that's taking place at a history museum. And that is where the woman who was in Egypt in the 50s or 60s is working. And something happens, and they think it might be related to a curse from a pharaoh, and I don't remember her name because it's not what I'm familiar with. But by Egyptian scholars, she's kind of considered an unimportant pharaoh, and the woman who's been studying her thinks that she may not be as unimportant as they think. So it sounds like it should be really interesting. This one is releasing on January 7th, so that's part of the reason why I don't have it yet. But I'm wanting to read a new release every month this year, which pretty much means that I have to purchase them, unless I want to hold my breath that my library's going to get a copy, and I don't really want to do that. So that's why I've purchased that one. Alright, so those are all of the books that I have bought since my last book haul. My last book haul was only about 4 books. This one is not so small. But I am looking forward to getting to all of these books, and thank you again to everyone who gifted me a book for Christmas or for my birthday. No, I don't expect anyone to, but I greatly appreciate those who do decide to. So I hope you know how much I appreciate it. If you've read any of the books that I talked about today, let me know what you thought about them in the comments. And also let me know if there are any that you think I should get to sooner rather than later. Other than that, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you later.